The monitor beside the bed beeped twice, then steadied. Elena Voss opened her eyes to a ceiling she did not recognize, and a light too white to be anything but a hospital. Her left arm had a needle in it. Her right hand was wrapped in bandage. Her mouth tasted like copper and someone else's decisions. She lay still for a moment, the way a person does when they are not yet sure if the danger is over or simply paused. The ward was quiet, not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that lives in places where people are too tired or too broken to make noise. 2 beds away, an old man slept with his mouth open. A nurse moved past the glass partition without looking in. The wall clock read 3:47 in the morning. Elena had been careful for 14 years. 14 years of small decisions that added up to a life no one could trace. She had changed her last name first, then her city, then eventually her country. She had built something in Ghent, a small life with a blue door and a daughter who thought her mother was the kind of person who simply liked quiet towns. She had paid her taxes under a name that meant nothing to anyone who had ever known her before. She had, in every way that mattered, become someone else. And yet here she was. A hospital in a city she had only meant to pass through. A wound she did not yet fully understand. She tried to sit up. Her ribs objected. She settled for turning her head toward the window instead. And that was when she saw it. 4 floors below, in the hospital car park. A black car. Not remarkable on its own. Cars were black, but this one was parked facing the building rather than away from it, the way a car is parked by someone who expects to leave in a hurry. 2 men stood beside it in the way men stand when they are working, not waiting. There is a difference, if you know what to look for. Elena knew what to look for. She had spent 14 years learning exactly what to look for. Her right hand, the bandaged one, went flat against the mattress, not reaching for the call button, not reaching for anything, just flat, the way hands go when the body is deciding something before the mind has caught up. The nurse came back around. Young woman, early 20s, hair pulled back, lanyard swinging. She checked the monitor, made a note on the tablet, and looked at Elena with the practiced warmth of someone who had done this 300 times this month. "You're awake. Good. How is your pain?" "Manageable," Elena said. Her voice was steady. She had also spent 14 years making her voice steady. "The doctor will come at 6. You had a car accident. Do you remember the accident?" She remembered the accident. She remembered the wet road and the other car appearing from nowhere, and the strange floating moment before impact. What she did not say was that she had been driving fast because she had noticed, 2 blocks earlier, that she was being followed. "Pieces," Elena said. "I remember pieces." The nurse nodded. This was apparently a normal answer. "Your identification was in your bag. We contacted your emergency contact number. There was no answer." "There wouldn't be," Elena said. The emergency contact number was a phone she kept in a drawer in Ghent and had not turned on in 2 years. The nurse left. Elena turned back to the window. The black car had not moved. She made herself breathe the way her therapist had taught her years ago, in a different city, under a different name. In through the nose, 4 counts. Out through the mouth, 4 counts. She had not thought about that therapist in a long time. She had not thought about a lot of things in a long time. That was the entire point. Her daughter's name was Lily. She was 13, clever in the way that made teachers both love and dread her. And she was in Ghent right now, sleeping under a yellow duvet cover, with her phone charging on the nightstand, and no idea that her mother was lying in a hospital bed 4 countries away, watching a car that should not be there. Elena was not going to think about Lily, not here, not with that car in the lot. She thought instead about the water cup on her tray table. Plastic, half full, a straw bent at an angle. She watched the condensation move down its side in a thin, slow line. She counted the seconds it took to reach the tray. 11. She counted again. 13. The irregularity bothered her less than she expected. She was getting worse at predictability in her old age. She was 39. She had begun to think of that as old age. The door opened at 4:02 in the morning. No knock. The air changed. She knew before she turned her head. She knew the way you know certain things that live in the body, rather than the mind. Not knowledge exactly, more like the memory of a temperature, the echo of something that was once constant, and then was gone. Dante Caruso walked into the room the same way he had always walked into rooms, as though he had already been there and had simply stepped out briefly. He was taller than she remembered, or perhaps the room was smaller. His hair had some gray in it now, at the sides. His coat was dark and unremarkable and almost certainly expensive. He did not look at the monitor or the IV line or the bandage on her hand. He looked at her face. She looked back at him. Neither of them spoke for what felt like a very long time. "Elena," he said. Not her current name, the old one. The name she had left behind like a coat at a party she had not wanted to attend. The terrible part, the part she would press down and examine later, in private, the way you press a bruise just to understand the shape of it, was that her body answered to it. Something in her chest recognized the sound before her mind could decide it did not want to. "You have the wrong room," she said. He pulled the chair from the corner of the room. Not aggressively, slowly, deliberately, the way a person moves furniture when they are planning to stay. He set it beside her bed and sat down in it, and the absolute absence of drama in the gesture was, somehow, the most frightening thing about it. "No," he said, "I do not." He did not threaten her. He did not raise his voice. He did not explain how he had found her, or how long he had been looking, or what he wanted. He simply sat in the chair with his hands resting on his knees, and he looked at her the way a person looks at something they have been trying to remember for a very long time, and have finally, at the end of a very long search, found. Elena turned her eyes back to the water cup. The condensation line had made it to the tray. 14, she counted silently. The monitor beeped, steady, unhurried, indifferent to the fact that the room had just become a completely different room from the one it had been 60 seconds ago. Outside, the sky above the car park was still dark. The black car was still there. The two men beside it had not moved. The old man 2 beds away was still sleeping with his mouth open. Everything was the same. Nothing was the same. She had left him before he could make her permanent. She had believed for 14 years that leaving was the only true thing she had ever done. She had built a life on that belief, the way people build houses on bedrock, carefully, deliberately, with the absolute certainty that the ground beneath would not move. The ground had moved. Dante Caruso was sitting in a hospital chair at 4 in the morning, and he was not going anywhere, and she was attached to an IV line and could not make him leave. And somewhere in Ghent, a 13-year-old girl with a yellow duvet and a charging phone had no idea that the world her mother had built for them both was, at this precise moment, holding its breath. Elena kept her eyes on the water cup. She counted. She breathed. She did not let him see that her hands were shaking. The hospital changed at 6 in the morning. The overnight quiet gave way to the organized noise of a new shift, trolleys in corridors, voices at the nursing station, the mechanical opening and closing of doors. A different nurse came in to check Elena's vitals, noted Dante's presence in the chair with a glance that asked a question she was professional enough not to speak aloud, and left without comment. The doctor followed at 6:20, a tired man in his 50s named Harlow, who explained Elena's injuries with the brisk precision of someone who had delivered the same information many times and had learned that excessive gentleness helped no one. 2 cracked ribs, a laceration on the right hand, mild concussion. She would need to stay another 48 hours. Dante listened to all of this without moving. Elena thanked Dr. Harlow and watched him leave, and then sat for a moment in the particular silence that follows medical information, the kind of silence in which a person has to decide how frightened they are allowed to be. "You can go," she said to Dante. "I know," he said. He did not go. She looked at him directly for the first time since he had sat down. He was 52 now, she calculated. He had aged the way some men age, not diminished, not softened, only more settled into whatever he had always been. His eyes were the same dark color she had spent 4 years looking at and 10 years trying to forget. There were lines in his face that had not been there before. She found, to her irritation, that the lines did not make him less anything. They only made him look like a person who had been through time, rather than simply through it. "How did you find me?" she asked. "With difficulty," he said. "That is not an answer." "No," he agreed, "it is not." She waited. He did not offer more. This had always been one of the things about him, the way he could occupy silence without filling it, without discomfort, as though silence were simply another room he was comfortable in. She had found it extraordinary, once. Later she had found it infuriating. Now she found it exhausting in a way that was very close to both. A trolley passed in the corridor. Someone laughed at the nursing station, a short, bright sound that did not belong to this room. "Were your men following me before the accident?" she asked. A pause. Brief. Yes. The honesty of it startled her more than a denial would have. She had expected deflection. He had always been direct when he chose to be, and the choosing had always been the part she couldn't predict. You could have been the reason for the accident, she said. I know that, he said. His voice was very quiet. I know that, Elena. She looked away, out the window. The black car was still in the lot, but one of the two men had moved. He was now near the entrance, standing with his back to the wall, watching the car park. She recognized the positioning. She had spent enough years in the world of men like Dante to understand what it meant when someone stood with their back to a wall and their eyes on the exits. It meant the threat was not from inside. It meant whatever Dante was afraid of was somewhere out there, in the ordinary world, walking around in ordinary clothes. This rearranged several things in her mind. You are not here to take me back, she said. It was not entirely a question. No, he said. Then why? He reached into his coat. She felt every muscle in her body tighten. An old response, automatic, one she had worked hard in therapy to unlearn and had apparently not fully managed. He produced a mobile phone. He turned it so she could see the screen. On it was a photograph. She looked at the photograph for a long time. Her face did not change. She had also spent 14 years learning to keep her face still. Where did you get this? She asked. It was sent to me, he said, 3 weeks ago. By whom? That, he said, is the question. He set the phone face down on the tray table beside her water cup and leaned back in the chair. He looked, for the first time, tired, not the tired of a man who had not slept. The tired of a man who had been carrying something for a long time and had been holding it in a way that costs more than carrying is worth. I need to tell you something about the night you left, he said. Elena's hands were flat on the mattress, still, controlled. I do not want to talk about that night, she said. I know. Dante. I know, he said again, and his voice had something in it she had not heard before, or perhaps had heard once, a very long time ago, and had decided later she had imagined. But I need you to hear it, and I need you to understand that what I am going to tell you is not an excuse, and I am not asking you to forgive anything. I am only asking you to know. The monitor beeped, steady. Outside, a winter sky was becoming gray instead of black, the first pale suggestion of morning pressing itself against the dark. Elena looked at the phone lying face down on the tray table. She looked at the condensation ring it had left beside the water cup. 2 rings now, overlapping, she thought, with a strange detachment that it looked like the beginning of a diagram. She thought about Lily in Ghent. She thought about the yellow duvet and the charging phone and the bookshop with its broken door latch, which she had been meaning to fix for 3 months and had not. She thought about 14 years of careful distance. Tell me, she said, quietly, without looking at him. And Dante Caruso, who had walked into rooms his entire life as though they already belonged to him, shifted slightly in the hospital chair, and seemed, briefly, not to know where to begin. He began at the end. Not the end Elena had lived, the coat, the suitcase, the 2 a.m. taxi, the decision she had made standing in a bathroom with the door locked, and her heart going so fast she could feel it in her hands. Not her end, his end. The night as he had experienced it, which was, she quickly understood, a completely different night from the one she thought they had both been in. He spoke slowly and without embellishment. This too was characteristic of him. He had never been a man who dressed things up. She had sometimes wished, in the early years, that he would offer her something with softer edges, but he had always given her things with the shape they actually had, and she had always, in her better moments, respected it, even when she hated it. He told her about the phone call he had received that evening, the call she had not known about. He told her about the decision it had required, and what that decision had looked like from the outside, from her side of a closed door, with no context, no explanation, no way to understand what she was seeing as anything other than what it appeared to be. He told her what it had actually been. She listened without interrupting. The monitor beeped. The gray sky grew lighter. A nurse's voice rose and fell in the corridor outside. Elena lay in the hospital bed with her hands flat on the mattress and let the story of a different version of the same night enter her and do whatever it was going to do. When he finished, the room was silent for a long time. You could have told me, she said finally. Yes, he said. I know. Why didn't you? He was quiet. Then, Because by the time I could, you were already gone, and then you were gone in a way that was very deliberate, and I understood that you had decided, and He stopped, started again. You were not wrong to leave. I want you to know that. Whatever I have just told you, you were not wrong. The life I had was not a life that was safe for someone to share. You knew that, and you were right, and leaving was the correct decision. Then what is the point of telling me? She asked. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Because, he said, and he reached into his coat again, this time producing a plain envelope, setting it on the tray table beside the phone. The photograph was not the only thing sent to me 3 weeks ago, and whoever sent it knows about you, and whoever sent it knows where you live. Elena looked at the envelope. She did not touch it. And Lily? She said. The name came out before she could stop it. The first time she had said her daughter's name in this room, in front of this man, and the word landed between them with the weight of everything it contained. Dante went very still. He looked at her. She looked back. The monitor beeped and beeped and beeped. And in the particular quality of silence that followed, the way he looked at her without surprise, without confusion, only with a recognition that was somehow worse than either, Elena understood that the photograph was not a photograph of her. She pulled the envelope toward her with one hand. She opened it. She looked at what was inside for a long time. Her face did not change, but her breathing did, very slightly, very quietly, in a way that a stranger would not notice. Dante noticed. He said nothing. He let her look. He let the silence do what silence does when words would only diminish it. Outside the window, the winter morning arrived fully, cold and colorless, pressing against the glass. The car park below was wet from overnight rain. The black car was still there. The man at the entrance was still standing with his back to the wall. Lily had her father's eyes. Elena had always known this, and had always, quietly, thought of it as the one beautiful thing she had allowed herself to keep without meaning to. It appeared that other people had noticed too. Elena set the contents of the envelope flat on the tray table. She looked at the ceiling for a moment. Then she looked at Dante. And this time she did not look away quickly, and she did not count anything, and she did not focus on the water cup or the condensation, or the rings the phone had left. Tell me everything, she said. All of it. Everything you know. And do not leave anything out this time. Dante met her eyes. There was something in his face she had not seen in 14 years, and had spent considerable energy convincing herself she had never seen at all. All right, he said. And he began. The morning moved around them like a river around two stones. Nurses came and went. Breakfast arrived on a tray and went cold. Dr. Harlow looked in at 8:30, noted that Elena appeared alert, asked if she needed anything, and left when she said she was fine, which was such a comprehensive inaccuracy that the word barely fit in her mouth. Dante talked. Elena listened. The story he told her was not the kind of story that arrived cleanly. It came the way real things come, in pieces, some of them fitting together immediately, and some of them refusing to fit, until a detail from earlier suddenly made a different detail make sense, like working a puzzle in the dark, and only occasionally being allowed a light. Here is what she learned. 3 weeks before Elena's car accident in this city, Dante had received a package, no return address, postmarked from Antwerp, which was close enough to Ghent to be informative and far enough to be deliberate. Inside the package was the photograph, a second item she had not yet let herself look at directly, and a single typed line of text on plain white paper. The line said, "She has something that belongs to you." Dante had spent 3 weeks trying to locate the sender. His people, and he had many people, spread across many cities, performing many functions that did not bear close examination, had found nothing. Whoever had sent the package was competent. Competent in a specific way, the kind of competent that is learned, not accidental. While his people were still searching, Elena had her accident. He did not say, "I was having her followed because I was afraid." He did not need to. Elena understood the architecture of it well enough. She had spent 4 years learning the architecture of the way Dante Caruso operated, and she had spent 10 years after that making sure she never needed to rely on that knowledge again. And yet here the knowledge was, still current, still accurate, still useful in a way she found deeply unwelcome. "The second item in the package," she said. "Show me." He hesitated. She had not seen him hesitate in the earlier part of their conversation, and the hesitation was more alarming than anything he had said. He reached into his coat for the third time. He produced a small, folded piece of paper, not from the envelope, she noted, a separate thing he had been carrying on his person. He unfolded it with care and held it toward her without releasing it, so she had to lean slightly forward, which made her ribs remind her of themselves. She read it. She read it again. She sat back. The paper was a school schedule, a weekly class timetable. The school's name was printed at the top in the standard font of the kind of school that sends home paper timetables. Elena knew the font because she had seen it on every timetable Lily had brought home for the past 4 years. At the bottom of the timetable, in handwriting rather than print, someone had written a time, 3:45 p.m., and beneath the time, a single word, Wednesday. Today was Tuesday. Elena's face remained still. She was extraordinary at keeping her face still, but something happened in her chest, a cold, spreading feeling, like ice water finding channels, and she reached for her phone from the bedside table with a steadiness that cost her considerably. "I need to make a call," she said. "I know," Dante said. He rose from the chair. "I will be in the corridor." She watched him stand. She watched him cross the room. She watched the door close behind him with a soft, definitive click. Then she dialed. Her hands were not shaking anymore. They had gone past shaking into something quieter and more absolute, the kind of stillness that arrives when a person runs out of the option of panic and has to become something more useful instead. The phone rang 3 times. On the 4th ring, Lily answered. "Mum?" Her voice was thick with sleep. It was barely 8 in the morning in Ghent. "Why are you calling so early? Are you okay?" "Yes," Elena said. "I just wanted to hear your voice. Are you home?" "Of course I am. It is 8 in the morning. Where else would I be?" A pause. The sound of a duvet shifting. "You sound weird." "I am fine. I just missed you. You called me yesterday." "I know." A longer pause. Lily was clever. She had always been clever. She was the kind of 13-year-old who heard what was not said as clearly as what was. "Mum," she said, quieter now. "What is actually going on?" "Nothing," Elena said. "Everything is fine. I need you to do something for me, though. I need you to call Aunt Vera and ask her to stay with you tonight. Tell her I asked." Silence. "Lily, did you hear me?" "I heard you." Another pause. "Okay, I will call her. But Mum..." "Yes. Come home soon." Elena closed her eyes for 1 second. One only. Then she opened them. "I will," she said. "I promise." She ended the call and sat with the phone in her hand and breathed. In through the nose, 4 counts. Out through the mouth, 4 counts. Then she got out of the hospital bed. Carefully, because of the ribs, but she got out of it. She detached the IV line, which she was not supposed to do, and which stung more than she expected. She found her clothes in the small cupboard beside the bed. Laundered, folded, somewhat the worse for the accident, but wearable. She dressed slowly and deliberately, and with the concentration of someone performing a task that requires all available attention. She opened the door. Dante was in the corridor, leaning against the wall with his arms folded, looking at the middle distance in the way of a man who had learned to wait. He looked at her, dressed, upright, IV removed, and something moved briefly across his face. "You cannot discharge yourself," he said. "I can," she said, "and I am." The doctor said 48. "I know what the doctor said." She met his eyes. "We are going to Ghent. You are going to tell me everything else you know on the way. All of it, Dante. Not pieces. Not what you decide I need. All of it." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "My car is in the lot," he said. "I know where your car is," she said. "I have known since 4 o'clock this morning." She walked ahead of him toward the lift. Her ribs made themselves known with every step. She did not slow down. The corridor was busy now with the full morning activity of a hospital, and people stepped aside without quite knowing why, the way people do when someone walks past them who has made a very clear decision about where they are going. In the lift, on the way down, Dante stood beside her without speaking. She could feel the solidity of him in the small space, that particular quality he had always had, of being more present than other people, of occupying a room more completely. It had been one of the things that had made her feel safe, once. Then it had been one of the things that had made her feel trapped. She was not entirely sure what it made her feel now, and she did not have the time to examine it. The doors opened. The car park was cold and wet, and the winter morning air hit her face with the flat impartiality of weather. The black car was 10 meters away. The man who had been standing by the entrance appeared at her left without being summoned. Dante spoke briefly to the man in a low voice. The man nodded and moved away. The driver opened the rear door. Elena looked at the open car door. She thought about 14 years. She thought about the blue door in Ghent. She thought about a school timetable with a handwritten time at the bottom and the word Wednesday. She got in. The car pulled out of the hospital lot and joined the morning traffic, and the hospital disappeared behind them, and somewhere ahead of them, 4 hours away by road, a 13-year-old girl with her father's eyes was making a phone call to a woman named Aunt Vera who had no idea, yet, that her evening was about to become considerably more complicated than she had planned. Elena looked out the window at the passing city. "Start from the beginning," she said. "The real beginning, not what you told me in the room." Dante, in the seat beside her, was quiet for a moment. "Then, how far back do you want me to go?" "As far as it takes," she said. He nodded. He looked straight ahead at the road unfolding before them, and he started talking. The road from the hospital to the motorway ran through the edge of the city, past a row of shops still shuttered for the morning, past a school where children in coats were arriving for the day, past a petrol station with a single attendant reading something behind the counter. Ordinary things. Elena watched them pass, and felt the particular grief of ordinary things in a moment when the world has shifted its axis, when the ordinary seems to belong to a different life that is going on calmly beside yours, indifferent to the fact that yours has cracked open. Dante had a second man in the front seat. He had been introduced as no one, which Elena understood to mean he was someone who did not need to be introduced, and would not appreciate it. He drove without urgency and without comment. The city gave way to the motorway. Dante began. "The night you left," he said, "I received a call from a man named Garrett Cole. Do you know that name?" "No," Elena said. "You would not." He was careful about that. Dante looked at his hands for a moment. "Garrett Cole was the reason my organization had survived the previous 2 years. He had relationships in places that I did not, and he used those relationships in ways that were useful, and I trusted him in the way that you trust someone who has proven consistently reliable, which is to say I trusted his usefulness. I was clear-eyed about what that was and what it was not." Elena said nothing. She watched the road. That evening, he called me and told me that 2 members of my own inner circle had made an arrangement without my knowledge, an arrangement with someone who intended to use it to remove me. This is the kind of information that requires an immediate response. There is no time to explain, no time to brief anyone, no time to prepare. You act, or the window closes and the consequences are irreversible. He paused. "What you saw," he said, "through that door." "I know what I saw," Elena said. "You know what it looked like," he said. "I am telling you what it was." She turned to look at him. His profile against the passing motorway scenery was composed, as it generally was. But there was something in the set of his jaw that she recognized, not from the years they had been together, but from the very early time, before she had understood enough to read him clearly. The look of a person saying something they would rather not say because not saying it is no longer an option. "Go on," she said. "What you saw was the conclusion of something I had handled very badly, not the handling of the threat. That was handled as well as it could be in the time available. What I handled badly was you. I did not tell you what was happening. I did not think, and this is the honest answer, not a comfortable one, I did not think that you would need to know. I had managed everything in compartments for so long that compartmentalizing had become a reflex. You were in one compartment. That situation was in another. I did not consider that you might open a door and find the walls between them." He stopped. The motorway spread wide and gray ahead of them. "That is the night," he said. "That is all of it. It does not make what you saw less alarming. It does not mean you were wrong to reach the conclusion you did. I am only telling you that the conclusion was incomplete, and that I have spent considerable time since then understanding why I did not give you the information that would have allowed you to reach a different one." Elena thought about that for a long time. The countryside moved past the window, flat, gray-green, winter-stripped. She thought about the woman she had been on that night. 25, 4 years deep into a life she had entered knowing its shape, and had found to be more claustrophobic in the living than in the imagining. She thought about that woman's hands on the locked bathroom door, deciding. She thought about whether knowing what Dante had just told her would have changed anything. It would not have changed my leaving, she said. I know, he said. The life. I know, he said again, and there was no argument in it, no deflection. You were right to leave, I understood that, eventually. Eventually, she repeated, with a flatness that contained multitudes. He did not flinch. Eventually, he confirmed. I am not going to pretend it was immediate. I was not a man who accepted things gracefully. I am still not particularly, but I understood, and I chose not to look for you. For a long time I chose not to look for you because you had decided, and you were not wrong, and I respected the decision even when He stopped. I respected the decision. She let that sit. She watched the road. And then, she said, someone sent you a package from Antwerp. Yes. And you changed your mind about looking. Someone changed it for me, he said. There is a difference. She looked at him again. He was watching the road ahead, not her, and his face was still and difficult to read. And she thought again, as she had thought at 4:02 in the morning with the chair scraped against the hospital floor, that he looked tired, not sleepless, the other kind, the kind that accumulates. The photograph, she said, in the package, it was not of me. A pause. No, he said. It was of Lily. A longer pause. Yes. She had known this since she read the school timetable. She had known it from the moment she looked at the photograph in the hospital room and kept her face carefully still and said nothing. But knowing a thing and hearing it confirmed our different experiences, and she let herself have the 2 seconds that the difference required before she continued. How old is the photograph? Recent, within the last month, based on... He stopped. She is in her school uniform, outside the school. She walks home on Tuesdays, Elena said, flatly, automatically, information surfacing without her choosing it. There is a cut-through behind the library. She always uses it. I have told her not to use it after dark, but she is 13, and she does not always. She stopped. She pressed her lips together. She looked out the window. The motorway continued. The driver continued. The flat landscape moved past in its indifferent way. Who sent it? Elena said. Her voice was entirely level. She had not chosen this leveling. It had arrived on its own, the way it always did when she needed it. Her body had built this in her, over 14 years of needing it. I do not know yet, Dante said, but I have a direction. Tell me. Garrett Cole, he said, died 18 months ago. He died in a way that is publicly recorded as natural causes and is privately understood by the people who knew him to have been considerably less natural. Before he died, he spoke to several people who then stopped being accessible to me. 3 of those people have since surfaced, in different cities, under different arrangements, working for a man named Victor Ashby. I do not know that name either. You would not. He has spent a great deal of money on not being known, but he has interests that overlap with mine in ways that are not compatible, and he has been patient about it for several years, and it appears that patience has ended. And he knows about Lily. It appears so. How? Dante was quiet for a moment. Then, I believe Garrett Cole knew. Before he died, he had resources that were more extensive than I understood at the time. Whether he told Ashby directly, or whether Ashby found it through Cole's records after his death, I am not yet certain. Elena stared at the road. She did not look at Dante. She did not look at anything in particular. She was thinking, and when she thought deeply, her focus turned inward in a way that was, to an observer, nearly indistinguishable from absence. Lily had her father's eyes. Garrett Cole had known. Victor Ashby, patient, private, resourced, had sent a package from Antwerp and a school timetable with a time and a day written by hand at the bottom. Wednesday. Tomorrow. 3:45 p.m. She picked up her phone. She called Vera again. It is me. Yes, I know. Listen carefully. I need you to do something else for me, and I need you to do it without explaining it to Lily. I need her to stay home tomorrow. She does not go to school. Tell her there was a water leak. Tell her anything. But she does not leave the house, and she does not go near the school. Can you do that? Vera, to her considerable credit, asked only one question. Is she in danger? Elena breathed. I am going to make sure she is not, she said. That is why I need you to keep her home. She ended the call. The car was doing steady motorway speed, 3 hours and 40 minutes to Ghent, approximately. The morning was fully established now. flat white winter light, thin and even and without warmth. "We need to reach Ghent before 3 tomorrow afternoon," she said. "We will," Dante said. "And you need to have people there before we arrive." He looked at her. "They are already on the way." She looked at him. The admission that he had already set this in motion, before she had said it, before she had made the call to Vera, before they had left the hospital, arranged several things in her mind that had been uncertain. He had not come to the hospital to explain himself. He had not come to correct the record as an act of conscience, though perhaps that was part of it. He had come because the threat was real and it was moving, and he needed her to know, and he needed her not to be alone in it, and he had, against every habit of every year before this, shown up to say so. She looked at his face. He was looking at the road again. She looked at the road too. "When we get there," she said, "you do not tell her who you are." A pause. "All right," he said. "I will tell her. When the time is right, I will be the one who tells her." Another pause. Longer. She could feel the weight of it. "All right," he said again. The car drove on. The kilometers counted themselves down in the quiet. Elena thought about Lily at home with Vera, probably already suspicious, probably already constructing a theory. She thought about the school timetable, and the handwriting, and the particular deliberateness of choosing Wednesday, which was the day Lily walked home alone, which meant the sender had watched, and had watched long enough to know the pattern. She thought about tomorrow afternoon, 3:45 p.m. She thought about 14 years of careful distance, and what they had and had not protected, and she made a decision. Sitting in the back of that car on a winter motorway with her cracked ribs aching and her bandaged hand flat in her lap. A decision as quiet and absolute as the one she had made in a locked bathroom 14 years ago. Whatever was coming, she was not going to be the person who waited for it to arrive. The motorway gave way to smaller roads as they approached Ghent. Elena had driven these roads enough times that she knew them without trying, the way familiar landscapes settle into the body, bypassing conscious memory and living somewhere deeper. The turn past the railway bridge, the long avenue of trees that went bare in November and would not recover until April. The petrol station, with the broken sign that had been broken for 3 years. She watched it all pass from the window and did not feel the comfort that familiar things are supposed to provide. The driver pulled off the motorway at Dante's direction. They were not going directly to the house. Elena understood why without being told. You did not go directly to the location until you knew the location was safe, and knowing it was safe required people arriving ahead of you to confirm it. They went instead to a hotel on the edge of the city. Not the kind of hotel that expected you to have a reservation, the kind that had a side entrance and a lift that operated without a key, and a manager who shook Dante's hand with the practiced neutrality of someone who had shaken it before and been compensated well for their discretion. The room was a corner room on the 4th floor. It had 2 chairs and a window that looked north toward the old part of the city. Elena could not see her street from here. She knew approximately which direction it was in, and looked at that direction for a moment before turning away from the window. There was a second room adjoining, a short corridor with a locked connecting door. For Dante, she assumed. She did not ask about the arrangements. She sat down in one of the chairs and put her phone on the table beside her and her hands in her lap. A knock at the outer door. The man from the front seat of the car, whose name she still did not know, entered with a bag containing food from a place that had not been open when they arrived, and so had been opened for them by a phone call she had not heard Dante make. She found this detail very characteristic, and found her own finding it characteristic very irritating. She ate because her body required it, and because whatever was going to happen tomorrow would require her to be functional. The food was unremarkable. She ate all of it. Dante sat in the other chair with coffee, and spoke intermittently on his own phone in a low voice, in Italian mostly, which she understood well enough to follow without him knowing she was following. He was coordinating. Logistics of the kind she remembered from her earlier life, the vocabulary of positions and timing and confirmation of readiness that sounded like nothing in particular to an unequipped ear, and like everything in particular to hers. She gathered. 4 people already in position near the school, 2 near the house, a car outside the hotel. Contact established with someone whose name she did not catch, in a city she could not determine, who was working the Victor Ashby question from a direction she also could not determine. When he ended the last call, she looked at him directly. "You said you had a direction on Ashby," she said. "Yes." Tell me the rest of it. He set the coffee down. He looked at her with the expression of a man assessing what can be said and what is better demonstrated. There is a woman, he said. Her name is Claire Dunmore. She worked for Ashby for 4 years. She left his employment 8 months ago under circumstances that were, he paused, complicated. She has since been living quietly in Copenhagen. She has information about Ashby's network, his method of operation, and, this is the relevant part, his reason for moving on me at this particular time. Have you spoken to her? Not yet. She has declined contact. She has reason to be cautious. But you believe she will speak? I believe she will speak to the right person, he said, someone who is not connected to me directly, someone who can offer her something I cannot. Elena looked at him. He was looking back at her with a steadiness she found, in this moment, both readable and entirely unwelcome. No, she said. Elena, my daughter is in this city, and she is in danger, and you want me to go to Copenhagen. I want you to go after Wednesday, he said. After Lily is safe. The timeline has room for it. Ashby will not move again immediately after tomorrow. Whoever he sends will fail, and he knows that failure requires regrouping. We will have time. You are very certain that whoever he sends will fail. Yes, Dante said simply. I am. She looked at him. He said it without arrogance, which was the thing about Dante that had always been simultaneously his most reasonable quality and his most dangerous one. He was accurate about his own capabilities, and accuracy without arrogance was very difficult to argue with. Why me? She said. Why would Claire Dunmore speak to me? He was quiet for a moment. Because she left Ashby for a reason, and the reason involves something that she believes no one in my world could understand. She is not wrong about most of my world. A pause. She might be wrong about you. Elena looked at the table, the empty plate, the phone, her own hands. She thought about Lily asleep under the yellow duvet, being told tomorrow morning that there was a water leak at school. Lily would not believe the water leak story. Lily never believed the convenient story. She would sit with the real question, and she would look at Vera's face, and she would know that Vera was holding something back, and she would, being Lily, choose to wait rather than push, for now. Elena thought about the school timetable. The handwriting, Wednesday, 3:45 p.m. She thought about 14 years of running being over, not because she had been caught, exactly, but because the thing she had been running from had found a direction she had not expected, had found the one thing she had not managed to put behind walls. She thought about a man sitting in a hospital chair at 4 in the morning who had not asked her for anything yet, who had told her the truth about a night 14 years ago, not to reclaim something, but because something had changed and she needed to know. Who had said you were not wrong to leave, and had meant it. She looked at him. After Wednesday, she said. He nodded. And I go alone. No one you send with me. She will not talk if I bring your people. He looked at her for a moment. The thing moved across his face again. The thing she had decided, over many years, she had imagined. All right, he said. She nodded. She rose from the chair. Her ribs had grown insistent over the course of the day, and she was conscious of the IV site on her arm, which ached dully in a way she had been ignoring. I am going to sleep, she said. I need to be present tomorrow. Yes, he said. She went to the door of the adjoining room. She stopped. Dante, she said, without turning. Yes. Did you know, before the package, did you know about her? The silence that followed was a specific kind. Not hesitation, not avoidance. The silence of a person finding the exact true answer to a question that deserves one. I suspected, he said. I did not look for certainty because looking would have meant acting on it. And the decision you made was yours. It was correct. I had no right to act on something you had decided, and I did not. She stood in the doorway for a moment. Okay, she said quietly. She went into the other room and closed the connecting door. She sat on the edge of the bed and took her phone and called Lily one more time. It was late enough that Lily would be asleep, and Elena let it ring until it went to voicemail, and then she listened to her daughter's recorded voice telling her to leave a message. She did not leave a message. She held the phone in her hands for a while. Then she lay down, still dressed, on top of the covers, and she stared at the ceiling of a hotel room in the city, where she had built her careful life, and she thought about tomorrow. Wednesday, 3:45 p.m. the school her daughter would not be at. The people Dante had already placed around it. The person who had written the time in handwriting on a school timetable and sent it from Antwerp, who believed that they were announcing something and did not yet know that they had already lost the element that made the announcement useful. Elena closed her eyes. She did not sleep for a long time. When she did, she slept without dreaming, which was the closest to rest she had managed in a very long time. She was awake before 5. The hotel room was dark and quiet, and for 1 second when she first opened her eyes she did not know where she was, and then she did, and the knowing settled into her the way things settle that are heavy and real and not going away. She dressed in the same clothes from yesterday. She had no others here. She washed her face and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror for a moment. The face of a person who had slept approximately 3 hours and had cracked ribs and a bandaged hand, and a daughter 2 streets away who thought her mother was on a business trip and would soon be told to stay home because of a fictional water leak. She looked exactly like what she was, someone who was very tired and was not going to let that matter. She came out of the bathroom and found that the connecting door was open. Dante was already up. He was sitting at the small table with coffee and a phone, and he stood when she came in, which was a thing she did not expect and which she chose not to examine. "Coffee," he said, tilting his head toward a second cup on the table. She took it. She sat. She wrapped both hands around the warmth of it. "Status," she said. "The school has been covered since 7 last night. Nothing unusual reported. The house. Vera's car is in the drive. No movement on the street that concerns the team." He paused. Lily's bedroom light went off at 23:14. She looked at him. "I asked them to note it," he said. "I thought you would want to know." She looked back at her coffee. "I would have checked myself," she said. "But yes." She paused. "Thank you." The word came out without awkward edges. That surprised her. She filed it away. The morning moved. Dante's people checked in at intervals. The unnamed man from the car brought food. Elena ate. She checked her phone. She did not call Lily again. She had spoken to Vera at 6, and Vera had reported that Lily was awake, unhappy about the school story, and was currently making herself toast in a pointed silence. This was so comprehensively accurate to Lily's character that Elena had felt, for one moment, a warmth that was almost ordinary. At 1 in the afternoon, Dante's phone rang. He answered. He listened. His face did not change, but Elena had spent enough time in the same room as a person to feel the change in the air when something significant has entered it. She waited. He ended the call. "A man arrived at the school 40 minutes ago," he said. "He did not enter. He drove past twice, and then parked 1 street away and waited." Elena set down the cup. "And?" she said. "He left when he did not see her." A beat. "He waited 43 minutes, Dante said, and when she did not come out at 3:45, he left." Elena breathed. She let the breath go. "Good," she said. "Yes," Dante said. He looked at her steadily. "My people followed him." She looked at him. "He is in a rented apartment in the south of the city," Dante said. "He made 2 phone calls in the car. We have the numbers. One of them connects, through 2 intermediaries, to a business registered in Antwerp that has no actual business, which connects to a holding company in Luxembourg, which connects to—" "Ashby," Elena said. "Ashby," Dante confirmed. She stood up. She walked to the window. The city of Ghent was out there, going about its Wednesday afternoon in the winter light, people in coats, bicycles on the wet road. The particular life of a city that does not know it is being used as a setting for something it has not consented to. Her bookshop was 8 minutes from here. The blue door, the broken latch she had been meaning to fix, the back room with the kettle and the single comfortable chair that she told customers was not for sitting in, which everyone sat in anyway. She thought about walking into that shop on a Thursday morning 2 weeks ago, before any of this. The smell of it, old paper and the particular dustiness of spines that have been opened and closed many times, the feeling of it being hers. She turned from the window. "I will go to Copenhagen," she said, "but first I need to go home." Dante nodded. "I need to see Lily," she said. "I need to see her, and be in that house for an evening, and be her mother. And then I will go to Copenhagen, and I will speak to Claire Dunmore, and you will tell me everything you know about her before I walk in the door." "Agreed," he said. "And while I am doing that," Elena said, "you are going to deal with the man in the rented apartment." A pause. He looked at her. She looked back at him. Carefully, she said, in a way that leads back to the source rather than eliminating it. I know how to do this, he said quietly. I know you do, she said. I am not questioning that. I am telling you that I want him followed, not stopped. I want to understand the whole shape of it before anything happens. Because Ashby has patience, and a patient man with resources does not send one person. If we stop one person, and the shape is still unclear, we have only shortened the timeline. He looked at her for a long moment. You have thought about this, he said. I have been thinking about it since 4 o'clock yesterday morning, she said. I have had time. A small quiet thing happened in his expression. She did not name it. All right, he said. We do it your way. She nodded. She picked up her coat from the back of the chair. She picked up her phone. She looked around the hotel room for a moment. The empty cups, the window with its view of the city, the connecting door standing open. Take me to my house, she said. He stood. He moved to the door. He stopped with his hand on the handle and turned back. Elena, he said. She looked at him. For what it is worth, he said. What you have built here. The shop, He stopped. He chose words carefully, the way he chose most things. What you built is good. I want you to know that I can see that. She looked at him for a moment. I know you can, she said. She walked past him to the door. They went down in the lift together, through the lobby, through the side entrance, into the cold Wednesday afternoon. The car was waiting. They got in. Elena gave the driver her address, her real address, the one she had protected for 14 years, the one with the blue door and the broken latch, and the car moved through the streets of Ghent. 3 minutes from home, her phone lit up. Lily, calling, she answered. You are on your way, aren't you? Lily said, not a question. 13 years of watching her mother's patterns. I can always tell when you are close. You get quiet before you call. I am almost there, Elena said. 5 minutes. Vera made soup, Lily said. She made a lot of it. She always makes too much when she is worried. A pause. Mum, yes. Is everything going to be okay? Elena looked out the window, the street she knew, the turn she always took, the lamppost on the corner that had been repaired last spring, the familiar shapes of the place she had chosen and made into a life. Dante, beside her, was looking at the road ahead. Yes, she said to her daughter, I am going to make sure it is. The car stopped outside the blue door. Elena got out. The door latch was still broken. She pushed it open and went inside.